Hey there, welcome. I'm here to help you relax tonight. So before you get too cozy, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you. It really makes us feel like the global community it is. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's begin our evening together. Story 1. The Patient Follower. The first letter arrived on a Tuesday. It was tucked under the windshield wiper of my car, a single sheet of pristine white paper folded neatly into quarters. No envelope, no stamp, just my name, Ilera, written in a precise, almost mechanical script. Inside, a short message. I see you. You are as beautiful as I imagined. Your admirer. I dismissed it. A prank, maybe a misplaced note. I lived in a city of millions. Anonymity was a given. But the letters kept coming. Every Tuesday, like clockwork. They were never threatening, just persistent. They commented on my daily routine. The blue dress suits you. I hope you enjoyed your coffee at the daily grind this morning. Your laughter is a melody. I changed my routes. I started taking different trains, visiting different cafes. It didn't matter. The letters always found me. They began to appear inside my apartment building, slipped under my door, left on the mail table in the lobby. The tone shifted subtly. Why do you try to hide from me? I only want to appreciate you. It hurts when you ignore my gifts. The gifts started the following week. A single, perfect red rose left on my doormat. A vintage brooch in the shape of a lion, a reference to my childhood nickname only my family knew, placed inside my gym locker. A recording of my own voice, captured from a phone call I'd had in the park, delivered on a tiny USB drive. I went to the police. They were sympathetic, but powerless. No explicit threats, no violence, just the terrifying, omnipresent evidence of a presence that knew me intimately, yet remained utterly invisible. They suggested a restraining order, but against whom? The final straw was the photograph. It arrived not on a Tuesday, but on a Sunday morning. It was printed on high-quality photo paper. It was a picture of me, sleeping in my own bed, taken from inside my room. The angle was from the corner, near the closet. On the back, written in that same precise script, "You are most peaceful when you sleep. Don't worry, I will always keep watch." I moved out that very day. I crashed on a friend's couch, then another's. I rented a new apartment under a different name in a different borough. I thought I was safe. For 3 months, there was nothing. Silence. I began to breathe again. Then, this morning I found it, taped to the mirror in my new bathroom. A single sheet of paper. "Welcome home, Ilera. I missed you." The closet in this apartment is much more spacious. It fits me perfectly. The terror was no longer a slow creep. It was a cold, hard immersion. My breath hitched in my throat, sharp and painful. The note fluttered from my trembling fingers onto the tiled floor. My eyes darted to the closet door. It was closed, seemingly normal. But was it always that shade of white? Had been slightly ajar before? I didn't scream. Screaming required air, and my lungs had seized up. I backed away slowly, 1 step, then 2, never breaking my gaze from the closet door. My mind raced, a frantic hamster on a wheel. How? How'd he find me? I'd been so careful. Cash payments for the rent. A P.O. box. A new job under my middle name. My back hit the cool wall of the hallway. The contact jolted me into action. I spun around and ran to the kitchen, my heart hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. I yanked a drawer open, the metal screeching in protest, and pulled out the largest knife I owned. The weight of the handle in my sweat-slick palm offered a sliver of primal, useless comfort. I called the police again. My voice was a high, thin wire of panic. I told them about the note, the photo, the months of harassment. I gave them the name I'd given the stalker before, the admirer. This time they sent detectives. They dusted for fingerprints on the mirror and the note. They searched the apartment, their movements efficient and clinical. They opened the closet door with gloved hands. It was empty, save for my few hanging clothes and a suitcase. "Nothing here, ma'am," the older detective said, his voice devoid of the reassurance I so desperately needed. "The lock on your front door shows no signs of forced entry. The building's security camera in the lobby has been out for a week. Maintenance issue. They left me with a case number and advice that felt like ash in my mouth. Change the locks. Get a security system. Be aware of your surroundings. As if I hadn't already been living in a state of hyper-awareness for months. After they left, the silence in the apartment was deafening. It was a heavy, listening silence. I stood in the center of the living room, the knife still in my hand, and turned in a slow circle. Every shadow seemed to hold a shape. Every creak of the old building was a footstep. I couldn't stay here. I wouldn't. I threw clothes into a bag with frantic energy, my movements jerky and uncoordinated. I needed to get out. Now, as I zipped up the bag, my eyes fell on the bookshelf. A single book was out of place. A thick, leather-bound volume I didn't recognize. I certainly hadn't brought it with me. It was shoved between my well-worn copy of To Kill a Mockingbird and a book on graphic design. With a feeling of dread that was becoming horrifically familiar, I walked over and pulled it out. The leather was cold. Embossed on the cover was no title, just a single symbol, a stylized eye. My stomach lurched. I opened it. The pages were filled with that same meticulous handwriting. But it wasn't a story. It was a log, a journal. October 12th, first sighting, the coffee shop on 5th. She wears her loneliness like a perfume. It's intoxicating. November 3rd, she prefers the aisle seat on the subway. She reads historical fiction. She bites her lower lip when she's concentrating. December 25th, she spent Christmas alone. I watched her from the park across the street. She cried. I wanted to comfort her. Asterisk January 15th. The new apartment is perfect. Smaller, easier to manage. The lock on the fire escape is a simple pin tumbler. Child's play. Asterisk. The entries went on, page after page. A minute-by-minute account of my life for the past year. My habits, my preferences, my private moments of sadness and joy. He hadn't just been following me. He had been studying me, curating me. The last entry was dated yesterday, August 27th. She thinks she's hiding. She thinks she's safe. She'll learn. Home isn't a place. It's a person, and I am her home now. The closet will do for now, until she's ready to let me in. I dropped the book. It landed on the floor with a heavy thud that echoed in the silent room. He wasn't just in the building. He wasn't just in the apartment. He was in the walls. He was in the very structure of my life. And he had been here all along. The knife felt absurdly inadequate now. A toy against a force that had already proven its ability to bypass every physical barrier I could erect. The urge to flee was overpowering, but a new, chilling thought paralyzed me. Where could I go that he wouldn't already be waiting? My eyes were drawn back to the closet. It fits me perfectly. The detective said it was empty. But had he checked above? Had he checked the panels? Old apartments like this sometimes had crawl spaces. A sound, faint, a soft, rhythmic scraping. It was coming from the closet. It wasn't the sound of someone hiding. It was the sound of someone being patient, waiting for me to understand, to accept the new reality. I didn't move. I couldn't. The scraping stopped. Then a new sound, a low, humming whisper. It was too quiet to make out words, but the melody was unmistakable. It was the lullaby my mother used to sing to me, a song I had never recorded, never written down, never shared with a living soul. The sound wasn't coming from inside the closet. It was coming from the air vent right above my head. He wasn't in the closet. He was in the ventilation system. The horrifying architecture of my new prison revealed itself. My apartment wasn't a sanctuary. It was an exhibit, and I was the prize specimen, living in a tank designed by my keeper. The letters, the gifts, the journal, they weren't the actions of a stalker trying to get in. They were the notes of a collector who was already inside, observing his acquisition. The whisper from the vent grew slightly louder, coalescing into a single, clear sentence that slithered into the room, devoid of any discernible emotion. Don't be afraid, Ilera. The noise will stop soon. I'm just making a few modifications. A smaller opening, so we can talk better. Time lost all meaning. I stood frozen in the center of my living room, a statue of pure terror. The low humming and soft scraping from the vents continued for what felt like an eternity, a sinister symphony of renovation. My mind, fractured by fear, began to cling to bizarre, mundane details. The dust motes dancing in a sliver of afternoon sun. The faint smell of my own sweat. The overwhelming, metallic taste of panic in my mouth. The sound stopped as abruptly as they had begun. The ensuing silence was even worse. It was a waiting silence. A hungry silence. Then a new sound. A faint, tinny clink, followed by a slow, grating drag. It was moving through the ducts. It was coming closer. From the living room vent, it traveled down the hall towards my bedroom, towards the vent that was directly over my bed. A memory, sharp and cold, stabbed into my brain. The photograph of me sleeping. It hadn't been taken from a closet. The angle was all wrong. It had been taken from above, from a vent. He didn't need to break down my door. He had a highway in my ceilings. He could be anywhere. He could see everything. A soft, whispering breath echoed from the bedroom vent, carrying words that were meant to be soothing but were pure nightmare fuel. It's ready now. A perfect view. Rest, Ilera. You look so tired. I'll watch over you. I'll always watch over you. Something inside me broke. The passive fear curdled into a blinding, white-hot rage. This was my home, my life. He had taken everything else. He would not take my sanity. I would not lie in my bed while he watched me from the shadows above. I stormed into the bedroom, my fear burned away by fury. I dragged the wooden chair from my desk and slammed it under the air vent in the ceiling. I climbed up, my hand shaking not from fear now, but from adrenaline. I grabbed the slatted vent cover and pulled. It was screwed in tight. Ilera, the voice whispered from behind the grate, sounding surprised, almost concerned. What are you doing? You'll hurt yourself. I ignored him. I jumped down, rummaged through my toolbox, and found a flathead screwdriver. I climbed back up and started wrestling with the screws, my movements frantic and uncoordinated. Stop this, the voice said, a hard edge creeping into its whisper. You don't want to see. You need to sleep. The last screw clattered to the floor. I took a deep breath, hooked my fingers into the grate, and pulled it free. Darkness. A square hole of pure blackness that smelled of stale air and dust. And something else. A faint, familiar scent. Pine and citrus. His aftershave. I fumbled for my phone, turned on the flashlight, and shone it into the hole. And I saw him. Not a face. Not a body. Just an eye. A single, bloodshot blue eye. Staring back at me from the darkness, unblinking. It was positioned right at the opening, as if it had been waiting for me. We stared at each other for a heartbeat that stretched into an eternity. That didn't look angry or violent. It looked curious, interested, like a scientist observing an unexpected reaction in a lab animal. Then a slow, deliberate wink. I screamed. I fell backwards off the chair, crashing onto the floor. My phone skittered away, plunging the room into near darkness. I scrambled backwards on my hands and feet like a crab, away from the hole, away from that eye, until I hit the far wall and could go no further. From the vent, I heard a soft, sighing laugh. Now you see me, the voice whispered. It was clearer now, unfiltered by the grate. It was a normal, almost pleasant male voice, and that made it infinitely more terrifying. Now we can really begin. I don't know how long I huddled against that wall. The sun set, plunging the room into darkness. I didn't move. I didn't dare. I could feel his gaze from the vent like a physical weight, a laser beam pinpointing me in the gloom. The police were useless. What would I say? There's an eye in my vent? They'd already dismissed me once. He'd proven he could bypass their efforts with laughable ease. My rage had evaporated, leaving behind a cold, hollow certainty. He wasn't just a stalker. He was a system. He was the architecture. Fighting him was like fighting the walls themselves. I was trapped in a labyrinth he had built just for me, and the Minotaur was always watching, always listening. A new sound started. Not a whisper, not a scrape. Music. It was tinny and distorted, filtering through the metal ducts from another part of the building. It was that same lullaby. My lullaby. He was playing it for me. This wasn't a threat. It was a ritual, a twisted induction into a new life. The music was a message. It said, I own your past. The journal proved he owned my present. The eye in the vent proved he owned my physical space. What was left for him to claim? My future. The realization was a cold, knot tightening in my chest. This wouldn't end. There would be no escape, no dramatic rescue. He would continue to shrink my world. One modified vent, one whispered comment, one personalized horror at a time, until nothing remained but the sound of his voice and the sight of that unblinking blue eye. The music from the vent swelled slightly, as if he knew I had finally understood. I slowly got to my feet. My legs felt like lead. I didn't look at the hole in the ceiling. I walked to the kitchen, my movements robotic. I put the knife back in the drawer. I picked up my abandoned suitcase and put it back in the closet. What was the point of packing? Where would I go? I went into the bathroom and splashed cold water on my face. I avoided looking in the mirror, afraid of what I might see looking back over my shoulder. When I returned to the bedroom, a new item was sitting on my pillow. A small, wireless Bluetooth speaker. It hadn't been there before. It crackled to life. His voice, clear and intimate now, without the tinny echo of the vent, filled the room. "Good," he said, his voice a model of calm approval. "You're learning. It's easier when you stop fighting. Don't you think?" I didn't answer. I just stood there, staring at the speaker. "I've taken the liberty of ordering dinner," his voice continued, conversational, friendly. "Your favorite, pad thai from the place on 8th. It should be here in 20 minutes. We can eat together." The speaker emitted a soft, digital chime, a notification sound. "Ah, and it looks like your new security system has just been installed. Top of the line. Cameras in every room. Microphones. Motion sensors. Now I won't miss a thing. For your safety, of course." I finally understood the depth of my delusion. I thought I was hiding. I thought I was fighting. But every step I took, every precaution I implemented, only played into his design. He wasn't invading my life. He was orchestrating it. My fear, my rage, my attempts to escape, they were all just part of the script he had written for us. The front door buzzer rang. The food was here. The voice from a speaker was gentle, encouraging. "You should get that, Alara. It's getting cold, and we have so much to talk about. Our future, for starters." I didn't move towards the door. I didn't run. I just stood in the center of the room, in the home he had built for me, and listened to the sound of my own heart beating. It was the only thing in the room that still felt like mine. And I knew, with a certainty that was colder than ice, that he was listening to it, too.